I don't see more people in the lobby, so let's get week 3. So welcome everyone to week 3 of the Women in GovTech Challenge. We're very much looking forward to today's session. And a quick reminder, we go into the following slide, Ayush. We are in week 3 of the program. We started with an intro to GovStack offering. Then we did a deep dive last week on service design, assist-to-be methodology, the importance of user journey, simplification measures, and service blueprint and high-level mapping of building blocks needed to enable the to-be user journey. And today our focus is on how, once we have the to-be user journey defined and the high-level identification of building blocks needed to enable our to-be user journey, how we're going to architect our service, how we're going to put together those building blocks into an architecture that help us not only enable this particular user journey, but also reuse these building blocks in the rest of our government services. So very much looking forward to this session today. And also last week, we had our first networking activity as part of the challenge. We're going to have 3. So thank you so much for all of you that participated in the session. We launched a research paper on gender elements to be applied during the service design. This was a research activity, part of the gender community of practice. So thank you for your valuable insights and contribution. And today's session, if we move forward, Ayush, has been structured as follows. We're going to have the opportunity to learn a lot from Are, which is a representative from the government of Estonia and a very senior experienced architect, together with Dr. Rankumar, part of the architecture team in GovStack, about the architecture and not functional requirements that apply for the GovStack ecosystem. And also from our colleague Nico from GIC, which is also the lead of the GovTech Sandbox, how these architecture principles and requirements are reflected in the Sandbox environment that is currently available, and with 4 building blocks deployed and a series of emulations also available for the 3 use cases currently demo in the Sandbox, which is the unconditional cash transfer program, the construction permits, and the high school record. So we're very much looking forward to today's session. As we always do, we're going to have enough time to ask questions. So we're going to run the presentations, have 40 minutes for architecture and functional requirements, 20 minutes for the GovStack Sandbox, and then 30 minutes to clarify all the questions. Assignment for week 3 is your high-level architecture diagram for each of the use cases that your teams have been working with over the last 2 weeks. And remember that you can iterate your design as we build knowledge and as we become more familiar with the GovStack ecosystem itself. So architecture is a very important element of any digitalization strategy in our countries. And I'm so grateful with Are, Dr. Rankumar, and Nico for your time and contribution to the challenge. So with this intro, welcome everyone once again to week 3, and I give the floor to Are Lapolin to start today's session. Are, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yolanda. Good day to all you participants. I'm from Estonia and I'm busy with automation of public administration for last 30 years. And last 20 years I was busy from the also doing with automation supported by architectural activities. And I had a problem since the beginning with usage of architecture as a discipline. And this is why I want to make sure that you will avoid problems which I had. And this is why I will start probably from the explaining why at all we are talking about architecture and building block, and how all of these things are related to normal, digitalization activities like use case definition, software development, and so on, and how it's related to cross-functional requirements, and how to arrive to applications, which is actually normally, kind of target or objective of the digitalization initiatives. So can I have a next slide? Next. Now, here is a picture. This elephant there, this is like very, very often the case when you have a very complicated system. I mean, you do not see the whole system, you see only part. And these people with closed eyes, they normally, and I'm pretty sure on these pictures, they do not realize that they see an elephant. And this is very often the case in the real life. And this is why architecture, it's a kind of simplification or a simplified view onto the complex system, which normally contains a lot of entities and relations between these entities. So architecture is a big picture on a complex system in order to simplify our understanding about this system. And definition of the system is that it is a set of entities which are interrelated between each other in some way. And in context of IT system development, we just replace word entity with a building block. And here we are. I mean, in our case, in case of IT systems development, architecture, it's a simplified picture of existing or a target information system which contains different building blocks. And when we are planning IT systems, then we are talking about architectural building blocks in a way that we are just talking about requirements, not yet existing building blocks. Once we have a solution, then we have a solution building block, which is actually already representing existing component. Now, if we go back to real life, in real life we have business requirements and software developers. This is for sure what we have, right? And when you talk with the software developer, they will ask you why you need all these architecture talks. I mean, if you present to me business requirements, I will definitely create for you system what you like, just writing the code. I don't need any kind of architecture or architecture planning or a documentation. And that is true. I mean, when a user with business requirements meet software developers team, they will create IT system in one or another way anyway, without any architecture. Yeah. So now question is why we need an architecture? Well, if you have very experienced team of software developers who already have done a lot of development in your business areas, then most probably the quality of a result will be good. But if you will have developers who just started, probably passed some exams and have done a couple of hello world level applications, then you are not sure that that this application will be modular enough, will be secure enough, and so on and so on. And here architecture will help you. Architecture will set up kind of framework of your requirements, not only both requirements which you see, but also requirements from the organizational perspective. So architecture in context of IT development is a planning tool. Yeah, it's not a tool how to develop IT system. At the end of the day, you still have to have software developers who should write some code, right? But architecture as a discipline will make sure that the quality of target information system will be on required level. Yeah. So in that sense, very often you will see that software developers not really fully appreciate your let's say wish to utilize architectural requirements, architectural principles, and so on. And now, next slide, please. So one of very widely used architectural frameworks, it's used for enterprise architecture, but it's useful in our context, in our discussion, is a TUGAF. TUGAF, it's quite already mature framework, and it contains mainly 4 components: business architecture, information systems architecture, which has data and application components inside, and then technology architecture. Now, technology architecture is nowadays become more and more like a commodity, and if we are in public administration, then we should try to delegate technology development and technology maintenance to kind of governmental cloud. In private sector, people already for ages using AWS, Amazon cloud, Google Cloud Platform, Azure from Microsoft, and so on. Unfortunately, in the public sector, we are not that happy like private sector, because we have to maintain sovereignty of states and of governments, and this is why we have to deploy our applications onto clouds which belong to or data centers which belong to government. But still, for example, in Estonia, we are centralizing data centers from different ministries to governmental cloud, and I think that is the best thing. This is why technology architecture as such is probably not that interesting in context of our discussion. Most of importance for us as architects lays in business architecture and its relation to application architecture. Data architecture, let's say, this is like a product or outcome of processing within the information architecture. So business architecture is like what we do. Application architecture, it's like a tool how we process the data, and data, it's an income and outcome from our processing. And TUGAF as an architectural framework is nicely defined with different architectural layers, and define a lot of other things like architecture development method and what is architecture principles, and so on and so on. So it's quite a lot of knowledge, and it's useful to get acquainted with this framework. Next slide. Now, business architecture. Let's see what it is for the public administration. First of all, there is a kind of layer what TUGAF calls capabilities, business capabilities, and we can see and we can think about that as an organizational perspective to the public administration organization. This is the mandate of organization. So, for example, tax administration should have capability to collect revenues. Customs administration or a customs department should have capability to control and avoid smuggling of illegal goods into country or out of the country, and should have a capability to facilitate fair trade. Yeah, so this is the capabilities, business capabilities. Now, business services, this is a kind of customer-centric point of view onto our business architecture. This is a set of services which we are delivering to customers. And business processes, this is how we are delivering these services to a customer. Now, next slide, please. This is like a real example from one of my applications. Let's say we have a risk management application. On the business capabilities, there is a standard which is saying that every risk management area should have a capability to define scope and context of risk management, should have a capability to assess risks, and then once risks are assessed, to apply treatments of residual risks. Yeah, so this is a business capabilities layer. Now, next layer will be services. What kind of services we should implement? And there are 5 main services. It's a scope management, risk identification, analysis, evaluation, and treatment. Now, in order to deliver that, for example, first service, risk management scope, context, and criteria definition, you have to implement, and here is a picture of simplified business process. You have to implement a business process which has 4 steps. Define objectives of the risk management in your organization, define expected outcomes of this discipline, define time, location, and other required resources, and that is a process, let's say simplified process. Now, business process, on another hand, can be supported by IT, by application architecture, by component of application architecture. So in order to, once we define objectives, we have to document all of that. And for that, we have to have an IT component or an application component, which we call risk registry. So every identified risk, we will document in risk registry. So we show here in the pictures that to support business process step define objectives, we have to have application which allows us to maintain risk registry for our organization. So this is how business architecture connected to application architecture. And that is when we have, kind of public administration organization, which is very often quite big, let's say police department, yeah, or a tax department, or a customs department, or a social care department. They are very big normally, and they have many different performance outcome areas and many different business processes, and all different processes have many different steps, and every step may require some support from the application architecture. And this kind of structured approach will help you to document all your findings and to keep everything about your organization in a what we call architecture repository, in a structured way, which is easily available to everybody who needs that. Yeah. So this is like an example how, for example, TUGAV can support architects while they are planning IT systems for the organization. So this business processes, services, and capabilities level, this is like a level where we are starting define business requirements, and it's connected to application architecture. Next slide, please. Now, this is a picture of detailed business requirements collection for identified need. If we, for example, if we have this business process of risk scope definition, and we agreed that we need to have a risk registry. So this is we have to collect the detailed business requirements And this involves already management, business owners, product managers, business analysts, solution architects, and finally, we will have a software requirement specification, which define what this risk registry should do. Next slide, please. So, going back to first question, why we have to have architecture in digitalization initiatives. The architecture is a tool or a method how to keep big picture and hide complexity. And building block, which is, as we agreed in the beginning, it's a kind of reusable component within the information system, will help us to structure or decompose a big elephant into manageable components and handle business requirements within the building block. And business architecture with its capabilities, services, processes, and requirements, this is like a structured approach how we can think about gathering business requirements. For example, and that is very important because our systems are very complicated, and we don't want to go with digital transformation in sequential way. We want to have capability to work in very different areas in parallel, and that is not easy. For example, well, I'm myself expert in the tax and customs area, and for example, in tax area there are 9 major performance outcome areas, and all in all, there are approximately, in a small country with, let's say, 10 million population, you will have in every tax administration, you will have something like 400, 500 use cases. So you will not be able to keep it everything in your head, or in even, I don't know, in some Confluence repository, something like that. You have to have a structured approach how to keep a complexity. And business architecture in connection with application architecture, this is exactly the way how you can do that. Now, in GovStack, we advocate or advertise a building block-based approach in order to simplify process of planning of information system and simplify process of implementation of these information systems. And for us, building blocks are not only entities within a system, but also a collection of best practices from all over the world. So this is why we believe that understanding of what is architecture and how it's helpful within the development process, and also how building block is helpful within the development process is very important. Now, next slide. Next. Now, another aspect when we are talking about digitalization of public administration is that there are many things which should not be done within one organization. They should be done on a national level. For example, like a legal framework or which is establishing, kind of standardized procedures, how IT or information technology at all can be used, who and how should take care for security, for privacy, and so on and so on and so on. So the thing is that in order to really be capable to deliver digitalization of single organization in a reasonable period of time, you should have on a national level something what we call digital government infrastructure. And digital government infrastructure should have at least 4 components: policy, legal framework, governance, policies, different policies, and organizational framework, which is establishing how management of IT programs should be organized, how architecture should be managed, what are requirements toward data processing, and so on. So these kind of things should be should exist in the country for a successful and fast development of digitalization initiatives. And we can say that there is four important pillars which should be properly defined within the national framework, and they are access, national ID, interoperability, and data. Access, it's kind of set of tools, techniques, which are enabling your users within the country to be able to use digital services. Because if people are not literated or does not have computers or smartphones, does not have internet access, then nobody will be able to use your digital services at the end of the day. If people does not have identity, digital identity, then you will not be able to deliver secure services. Also, practice showing that without interoperability, you will not be able to deliver good user experience services, because my experience, my personal experience showing that just the automation of existing processes, that is not really something what we need to do, because normally just automation of existing processes, that is like increase of complexity, because normally in such situation you do whatever you have done so far on a papers, and then you do it in digital world, and that is like a double complexity for your employees within the public. Sorry.
Can you help us muting the participants? Thank you.
Yes.
So
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So in a way, in order to really benefit from digitalization, you have to transform your business processes. And in order to transform business processes, you have to have a connectivity to different organizations. For example, in Estonia, before people need to were submitting the tax returns in such ways that they were filling the incomes and deductible outcomes by themselves. Yeah. So we decided we need to improve the user experience, and we told to our people that we will collect all data for you. You just log in into the system, we'll see whether the all data is properly filled for you, and if it's filled properly, then you have to click and say, okay, I am agree, I submit this tax return as it is. But in order to implement that, our tax administration was looking to integrate themselves with banks, with all tax employers, with insurance companies, with the schools, in order to collect deductible expenses. So in that sense, interoperability within public administration and within national context is very important in order to be able to bring totally new and transformed business processes. So this is the third pillar. And last but not least, the data pillar. In a way, you have to have in your country requirements. What kind of data is public, what kind of data is private, how and who is responsible to secure this data, and so on. So all of that should be in place in order to be really fast with digitalization within one administration. And this is a digital government infrastructure. Next slide, please. Now, this is the example of what kind of services you as a solution architect should be able to use from these different pillars, access pillars. So computer literated users, digital ecosystem of different local services will create a habit of people to use digital services. Now, digital identity. Every user has not only national ID, but also they are skilled to use authentication services, digital signature services, and so on. Digital data, there are requirements for protection, there are regulations how to protect, and so on and so on. And interoperability means that there is a legal interoperability framework, there are technology which are enabling exchange of data between different organizations and so on. So all of that is normally should be done outside of single public administration organization, and this is something what we call digital infrastructure. Next slide, please. Now, here is an example. We have a requirement. We should be able to deliver secure, coherent, personalized digital service to all internal or external customers of my organization. Yeah. So for that, we need to have a building blocks like authentication, national ID, authorization. Why authorization? Because when I want to consume, somebody switched on the mic or something. Okay, when I want to consume digital services on behalf of my company, public administration organization should be able to check somewhere that that I have actually rights to act in the digital service in digital environment on behalf of my company, because normally company it's a legal entity. Company never sit in front of computer. In front of computer, there is always person, and you have to have authorization building block, which helps you to define whether this person is authorized to talk on behalf of one company or not. And roles mechanism also important, because when I'm logging, sometime I want to act on behalf of company as director of this company, and sometime I want to submit my personal income tax return. So you have to be able to distinguish that. These kind of building blocks are needed to be able to implement some secure service. Next slide, please. Next. Now, building block normally in GovStack has at least 8 sections where we're describing, general objective of building block, key digital functionalities, functional requirements, data structure which are inside building block, service API. API it's application programming interface, which explain how this building block can be used. Internal workflows which are facilitating understanding of internals of building block, and cross-cutting requirements which are actually next slide, please. I will comment on these cross-cutting requirements later. This is like a cross-cutting requirements. So there are cross-cutting requirements that building block should have a certain level of security capabilities. It should be autonomous, means that it should be possible to deploy it in Dockerized container. It should be localizable and so on and so on. It should be able to publish API using REST IP or some other protocols. So this is all are cross-functional requirements which are normally should not be directly or explicitly documented by business owner, and they are part of building block description. Next slide. Now this is a continuation of cross functional requirements. Well, previous slide, please. Can I change myself slides? No, I cannot. Okay, so there are requirements for flexibility, for scalability, because well, we call all these requirements ELITs. So security, scalability, maintainability, and so on and so on. There are like very many different type of ELIT requirements, and for every building block we are documenting what are those cross functional requirements for specific building block. Next slide. Now, how we can use building block? Building block is a component of larger system, as we already discussed. That it can facilitate delivery of digital services, including infrastructure, digital public infrastructure. Building blocks can be open source or proprietary, and they are exposing the API and may have or may not have their own user interface. Next slide, please. Now, this is the briefly like steps what you have to do as a let's say business owner, solution architect, in order to identify building blocks you need. So you describe use case, you identify workflows within the use case, and then you will see what kind of building blocks you need and what kind of services from building blocks you need. And next couple of slides is actually visualizing one specific example of trade license use case, how all these steps can be done. Next slide, please. Next. So we have a use case. Potential restaurant owner wants to open restaurant, and for that she need to get a trade license. Next slide. So first step, on the right side you can see we are defining user actions and system actions within this use case. So owner should see what are licensing requirements, and then submit application, and it will be reviewed by authority, and if everything is fine, she will be granted restaurant license. Next slide. Now we can visualize this use case as a business process, and here we have business process for this use case. And this kind of visualization is always help you better understand what kind of activities within this use case. Next slide. Now, once you have once you write down your steps within your use case, you can start thinking what kind of components you need for that. For example, owner wants to see requirements for licensing. That means that the authority should have some website where all these requirements are published. That means that you have to have some web content management system. Now, owner needs to log in and provide her identity. That means that you have to have a portal identity management. Also, licensing always related to payment of fees. That means that you have to have some payment gateway. Now, once authority will receive application from owner, you have to store it. That means that you have to have document management system. Now, normally when you have kind of trade license, you may do some physical inspection of restaurant, of place, and to see that all requirements are fulfilled. That means that you have to have some workflow management system in order to delegate tasks from initial officer to inspector. And also you have to have some scheduler component which will help you allocate time slot of inspector to do this physical examination of place. Yeah. And then you have to have some case management and notification capabilities in order to handle all findings, create report, and notify restaurant owners that you granted a license or did not grant a license. And also all licenses should be registered somewhere, and for that you have to have digital registry. Next slide, please. And here, last but not least, for every identified building block, you will create a more detailed list of services which you are expecting from this building block. And for that, you can see this on the right side, fourth column contains identified by you required services. And this is actually how you identify required building blocks. Then with this definition of required services, you can already browse in GovStack catalog of building blocks and pick up for yourself required building blocks and go to sandbox and start experimenting. And this is where I give floor to next topic, which is a sandbox.
Thank you so much, Ari. Nico, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ari. I will share my screen directly because I will show some things on my desktop computer and try to find. Can you see my cursor? I find a functionality to have a nice big cursor so that you can see everything.
Yes.
Nice. Thanks. So first starting with the slides, but then I move to my browser. So my name is Nico. I'm the product owner of the so-called sandbox. So not an architect myself, but I think that's also valuable in this regard because I think also not all of you are IT architects in this regard. And we will move closer to the task of this week and especially look at what are termed as application architecture. So what you saw last week was the journey on service design. So how, also similar to what Ara just presented, how to come from a to-be user journey to a service blueprint where there are several things mapped. One of the different, the business process and the steps in this use case down below to the building blocks. So this is a template the team provided you as a way to map down all these aspects. And you saw from Lawrence and Jonas how to now move further to create the front end part, the user experience, taking these steps from this blueprint and creating wireframes with this wireframe kit. This is very much focused on user experience and front end, and now we would like to get to the back end part and deep a little bit further into what developers and engineers would need to create this architecture, the application architecture with the building blocks behind that. So we take again the service blueprint and we would create the two different diagrams. One is I would here call the architecture diagram, mapping out the different building blocks, and one is a sequence diagram mapping out how the building blocks interact with each other. I will first go through, explain one and the second one here via slides, and then I will demonstrate it side by side with a live system and go through it. So if you first have a look on the architecture diagram, there is a purpose already also mentioned by Are. It is drawing down what are the entities, here in our case, building blocks and environments, and how are they connected to each other. And you have here on the left side, that's us, the citizen or the user, which is drawn down here. You have for a use case always a front end, which is basically the user interface, the user sees, and some kind of a back end, which inherits the business logic, so which is requesting all the information from the different building blocks. Basically there is a logic in there here. And then you have the so-called information mediator, which is this big part here. This information mediator serves the purpose of securely transferring data between the applications in this environment. So you would have at each point a so-called security server, which is sending information from one building block, or for here in this case a backend, to the other side, to another building block. And why is that needed? Yes, you could have also everything in one system, but the idea is, as also Ara mentioned, we are looking here from a national perspective. So in these quarters here, they could be operated by different entities within a government, for example. So this information mediator allows the secure delivery between environments where certain building blocks are living, basically. So that's why, just remember, there is information mediator, and at each point where there's a building block, you have some kind of a security server. Can be one building block or can be more. Like here, one, and here are more, so 2 building blocks connected to one security server. And the others, all the other blue things you see here, are building blocks. So there is a registry building block, second registry building block, the payment building block, and not connected to the information mediator, because I show you in this example also how that is implemented, the identity building block. But that's actually, for now, most important to know what are the different entities we see here, and we draw the lines, how they are connected to each other. So very high level, and that we get an overview. You can also, if you are interested with your use case, think about which building block would be operated by a certain entity within the government. You could also write down next to it who is in charge and operating this building block, if you like. But I also show that in practice, we drew this diagram with draw.io, but I would say you can use any drawing tool which is feasible. It is on testing this style of drawing down an architecture can be done with every tool. Now, looking at the second one, you see the same parts here, where there is the user. Here we call it's a civil servant. There is the backend and the different building blocks. Identity building block, information mediator, open emails is the registry building block, and the payment building block. This diagram is to draw how these entities are connected and how they are exchanging data to serve a certain use case. And we have, again, user, which is the same as front end in this case. We have the back end, we have the information mediator, we have the building blocks. So same entities, different way of drawing these downs. And you have for each one line, but these dark black lines are the interactions between them. So you would start in the beginning of your use case, go through the service blueprint and say, okay, the user would first ask the backend to sign in. This backend would request the identity building block to authenticate this user. And so on. I will go with you through this whole part on the live demo. It is not necessary to be specific to an API. You can be, but just write down what you would expect to interact, the interaction between these building blocks. So there is no rule how this should be named for this purpose here. You could do this with Mermaid, but I would also say take whatever drawing tool is appropriate. This is such an easy style to do, so that can be done with every drawing tool, I would say. Okay, now trying to show this on the live demo. I have here on my left side a browser window. Half of the desktop is browser window, and on the right side I have these two diagrams opened. Last week, Jonas already showed you that you can access the govstack.gitbook.io/sandbox page. There are some tools to further dive into. For example, he mentioned last week the service design section, where you can go through all these phases and where we described how we implemented the construction permit use case. He also showed you the construction permit use case in wireframes. You can access this here. However, they are updating something today, so they are building the front end right now. I can give you a look into this, what they created, what last week was shown by Jonas. This is the actual tool, but you can unfortunately only in a few days access this yourself on this page. Because with the construction permit use case we showed you last week, we are not yet in the stage where we fully implemented it from top to down. I would need to now change subject to another use case, which we call social cash transfer use case, and show you this example of diagrams based on this use case. A social cash transfer use case is, in short, basically a use case where a government sends a certain amount of money to a citizen based on a certain need they have because of in a certain program. And you can also do this yourself. Let me access the front end, and down below you get the instructions how to navigate through this. So opening that use case. And now we are in the use case, and we can reflect this whole thing on the right side in our diagrams. So what we see right now is basically this part, and we usually see this part as a user. All this, everything behind that is not shown to citizens or users. We are also here on this diagram, and now when we click on this button, we request to sign in. So here, this is a sign-in request to the backend, and that's the same here. And this backend, in our case, as also mentioned by Ara, a building block can have their own UI. It forwarded us to the identity building block. Now we have the functionality of here. We want to log in. I have to quickly go back to the ID from the documentation. I'm authenticating with my ID and verify. So, and now I'm basically again here, and in this diagram, I managed to do the first two steps, signed in, and the user authentication with the identity building block. Now, in this case, I'm a civil servant tasked to enroll persons to a social protection program. So I am here in the view of the civil servant, and the only thing I'm able to do is I can access the candidate database. So candidates for the social protection program. So I'm accessing the database of certain persons listed down here. And what we did on this diagrams is we requested to get all the candidates listed in this list. And these information are, in our case, stored in this backend. It could be also that they are stored in a registry building block. So these information of the candidates list are still here in our prototype. But now I want to, for example, click on one person. I still got the information, but I now got on more information of the certain benefit packages. So these are the programs I, as a civil servant, can enroll these. This is the next step. So here, the backend didn't know what are actually all the packages which I can enroll the candidates in. So the backend needed to ask OpenEMIS, that is this one here, the registry building block, where all the data about these packages are stored. What are actually packages I can offer? And so it got these informations from the packages and could display me according into information where these which this candidate is able to be enrolled, and offered me one. So I'm enrolling this person as a civil servant and got the second one. Create a new beneficiary. So we're taking this person from a candidate role to a beneficiary role and remove that person from the list. This is still be done in this part. Also, automatically register this person into the payment system. So what I did now is I enrolled this person with enrollment. The person was registered in via this information mediator in the payment building block as a person to be applicable for this payment. You see that here right now. Now, in our demo environment, we have a second role, which is a payment officer. I need to quickly get that ID. And we are logging in again as a different person. And you see here now we are in the role of a different civil servant. And this time, this person can only see the beneficiary database and not the enrollment database. Here we have the person I just enrolled, or the other person enrolled basically into the program. And I can click onto this and order the payment. And here I request the backend, this one, to order the payment. And the payment is validated and executed. And here you see that the backend is forwarding further that request to the payment building block. So order the payment. In this case, I have to confirm, and this payment is ordered. So you could go through this whole use case, and on all these diagrams, you can follow this process. The process is better described in the lower diagram, of course, but in the upper diagram, you have the different entities and how they are connected, and see that they are in a certain way connected with with the user who's giving the requests. Right. So going back to the presentation. So I hope this this quick summary of how these diagrams can be used and what they are visualizing, and it's mainly on trying this out, and you can use whatever drawing tool is applicable for that, going through your service blueprint and create these diagrams, which are a good step for then developers to get one step further and create this system out of your diagrams. Yeah, that's for now, and I think we can go into a Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nico. Thank you very much, Are. And I hope all of us feel very inspired in translating good service design practices into architecting a solution that, of course, serves the different use cases that you are developing across the challenge, but keeping in mind that each building block can enable all services in your catalog that, for example, requires authenticating the user, or all services in your service catalog that requires payment. And by doing an exercise with this priority use case and following all the steps from the service design to architecting the solution to prototyping it, is a good way to leverage the GovStack approach and then be able to scale it in each of your countries. So we're gonna follow the same dynamic as with previous sessions. You can use the chat to write your questions, or raise your hand, and I will go in order in giving the floor. So to get started, this is an interesting challenge because it's the first time that I see Arabic in my Teams screen, so I do not understand the name of the person that is raising the hand, but please, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry, I entered from my daughter account. So the name is in Arabic, Vivian. I would like to thank you and all the instructors today about this informative session, but I would like to ask if there's a record. If you will send a record of this session, because unfortunately I entered late, not in the beginning.
Yes, the session is being recorded, and as with previous sessions in the challenge, all the recordings are available in Atingi. So those colleagues that are not able to attend or to participate can always refer to the recording to clarify any questions. And Sinara, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was wonderful, this meeting. And what I would like to say is, as soon as Vivian said, it would be great to have this meeting in YouTube as the previous one, because I think it's easier than just in the drive. It's easiest to watch in the YouTube, better than in the drive, as it was the first one meeting. So I would like to suggest, if it's possible, that every meeting could be recorded and put in a place in YouTube, because it's easy for us and to understand. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sinara. Yes, the videos are actually hosted in GovStack YouTube, and they will put the link into the different materials. The first one was in Drive because we didn't have a Thingy ready, but thank you for the suggestion, and happy to do so. In the chat, there is a question for Javadi Shuri. Hopefully I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but you can go ahead and ask your question if you are ready. Okay, I don't see Javadi unmute.
Yes, I think she's on hold. So as soon as she's online, I'll message her on our chat.
Okay, perfect. And she's requesting another email. I think you can support her with that. Any other questions, thoughts as you work in your use case? I think something that is important to keep in mind, it's at the level of the assignment for this week is the high level diagrams. And the beauty of having the sandbox and what Nico kindly described is to see why these diagrams are important to guide the work of the developers in putting the application together, right? Because at the end, the application that enables the agreed to be user journey it may not be a solo application, but rather integration of several building blocks that enable that particular user journey. And the objective of emphasizing the importance of a microservices architecture is to have enough flexibility to make changes across the different iterations of our service. We all know that we usually launch services in an alpha version, we get feedback, we iterate, and we need to change some steps in the journey to make it more seamless, to make it more simpler. And in order to do that, we should be able to have our microservices sufficiently decoupled to be able to have that flexibility. So I think that was a very important element of today's session. And while we see more hands raised, I would like to encourage.
There is a question. in the chat about which diagram to use.
You can use both. Thank you, Ari. In terms of the assignment for this week, the request is to work with your teams in using the two diagrams, like high-level integration and the sequence diagrams. Are very simple to do, but requires understanding of what are we connected. So I think that's why today's session was so relevant, and we put you the same example. If you go to the workbook and the sequence of examples that we have been adding every week, the two diagrams that Nico kindly explained and described are the ones that we put you as an example for the work that you're going to be working with your team in developing for this week. And I also see another questions from Javadi. I want to know about these topics, the tools used for enterprise architecture modeling. What about DevOps integration within architecture efforts in government entities? And question number 3, what about the trend of using Microsoft Azure within government bodies? So who would like to start with answering these questions? Are?
I can, yeah. I mean, for enterprise architecture management, there are many tools, depend on scale, how do you want to use it. One of the best tools, what you can use, is produced by German company Software AG, and the name of the tool is Alphabet. This is an excellent tool, but this tool is applicable for organization which is really serious about enterprise architecture, who wants to really benefit from that and wants to put a lot of efforts in order to bring in one enterprise architecture repository all information about business architecture, application architecture, and use it. Because to bring things into repository, this is just an expense. But in order to benefit from that, you have to adjust your organizational processes in such ways that you are actually using enterprise architecture in your planning activities, in your risk management activities, because enterprise architecture information will show you what are your operational risks with relation to IT, for example, yeah, and so on and so on. So I would say that this is an expensive exercise, not in terms of tool. Tool is not expensive. Expensive is a process of keeping enterprise architecture up to date in using that. Yeah, that is why it is expensive. And DevOps, DevOps as such, it's activity of IT development, and architecture management. This is a planning process. So DevOps, it's a part of the software delivery process, and architecture management is a part of a planning process. So it's a different things. And DevOps, of course, nowadays, for nowadays software development processes, this is kind of must. I mean, everyone should use DevOps in a way to build, to create the pipelines which are, taking care for continuous integration and automating of all different steps, starting from linting, testing, deploying, and so on. So that is must for sure. And what about usage of Microsoft Azure? Well, it depends where you are on a map, on a world map. For example, I myself, in one small country in north of Europe, we call ourselves Estonians, and we have nobody in our country. I mean, not from Microsoft, not from IBM, not from Oracle. So we cannot use this kind of cloud providers because we are a sovereign country. We want to keep all our data within our territory. For example, if someone start cyber attacks against us, first thing what we will do, we will close our perimeter. And when we close our perimeter, that means that if data is outside of Estonia, we cannot access it. So this is why we have to keep our data inside our territory. But unfortunately, we don't have Microsoft Azure, we don't have AWS, we don't have Google Cloud. So this is why we creating our governmental cloud. But if you are so lucky and you have cloud, I think it's a way to go. But you still should have an agreement between government and cloud provider with regard to security, privacy, availability, audit, and so on and so on.
Thank you, Ari. And another question that I see in terms of Russia, can we use our own architecture? I mean, yes, if each country has its own architecture, for the sake of the assignment, the objective of using the exemplar diagrams is because you need to work with your team in putting together the architecture diagram that will enable the use case that you are working with. So it's the architecture diagram corresponds to each of the use cases that each team is putting together. And I think a very important element that is reflected in the technical specifications, and maybe you can give us more context, Ari and Nico, is on the security component, how to incorporate or how that is reflected in our architecture documentation and best practices that you can recommend.
Well, if I may start. Security component, of course, it is important, and it is presented on application architecture level as trust services like identification, authentication, authorization. It's presented on a technology level like all different tools for like a firewall and so on. I mean, it's a components, it's a building blocks which normally are presented on application architecture and technology architecture.
Nothing to add there.
Yes, Nico, go ahead.
I have nothing to add there. The security building block is quite long, so you could implement, or you need to implement that in various parts of the whole system. But I don't think that in this diagram task is too important at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And just as a reminder, next lecture, which is going to be week 4, we are going to have a deep dive in the information mediator. So the security component as reflected in the diagram that Nico show in GovStack technical specification for information mediator, the architecture considers a security service connected to each of the application interacting in the GovStack ecosystem. So we're going to have more detail on what exactly that means, but I think showing this in the diagram that Nico described in detail and that you also have in the workbook as an example for this week assignment becomes very relevant, especially taking into account data protection regulations that each of our countries have. And going back to the reference of the diagram that I presented at the beginning of the conversation about policy and about governance, embracing our application architecture, it becomes very relevant that as part of our digitalization strategy, we have a very comprehensive narrative to present to the rest of the cabinet members, to our data protection authorities, when putting together each of your country's government stack. because at the end, this is to enable government services that are centered on user needs, but also that comply with all regulatory mandates applicable for each country. Let me see if we have more questions on the chat. And if there are no more questions from our side to our panelists, I would like to ask a questions to our participants and our mentors, because we have a lot of government representatives here, and maybe you want to take a few minutes to share with us how the architecture looks like in your countries or in the organizations that you represent. Who would like to share with us? Anyone? I think I saw Pirelli, one of our mentors. I'm not quite sure if she is connected, or our colleagues from Peru. Which have a very strong digital service design team and a lot of reusable software components in place. No? All right. If there are no more questions on today's session, thank you all. We're very much looking forward to the different interactions coming along the week. It's a easy assignment after a strong set of discussions in terms of the ASIS and the to-be user journey, but one that is very important, because having a good architecture in place, keeping up updated, as Are mentioned, is the heart of our digitalization effort, to make it more cost efficient, to make it more agile, and to start always with reusability as a main principle to reaching the scalability. So a quick reminder for next week is, if I'm not mistaken, is our last session in this 2023 period. Is going to be week 4, and then we're gonna go into Christmas break. So embrace the challenge. Keep coordinating with the rest of your team members on which building blocks are needed to enable your different use cases, how you're gonna put them together and express that in the architecture diagram, how the different interactions among the different building blocks should be reflected in the sequence diagrams. Office hours are going to be running twice a week, just like we did last session. You have also our experts available in the Slack channel, and we're very much looking forward into seeing the different sequence diagrams. And we still have a few time available, and I see one question: how we can recover the blocks and integrate it into a tool? Is there support for integration? Okay, at the level of the challenge, this is just a prototype, so it's more a documentation exercise. And if you are going to go further into following the do-it-yourself component of the sandbox, it depends on the type of support that you're looking for. We're happy to review this on a case-by-case basis, but that's a very important question, and it was actually one of the questions that we had in a meeting today with the colleagues of Bangladesh, which is one of our reference implementations. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so thank you so much. An amazing session. Thank you so much, Are. Thank you so much, Dr. Rankumar. Thank you so much, Nico, and thank you all of you for your consistency in joining the sessions, for your active participation in the Slack channel, in the WhatsApp groups, in the email correspondence. A lot of things going on. Interacting and sharing is what makes this experience our first edition of the challenge. So we are learning together with you how to best put this learning path together, how to make it meaningful, and especially how to help you deliver better digital government services for the citizens of your different countries. So thank you so much for joining us today, and very much looking forward to your assignments, and see you in the next lecture. And sorry, Super Ajush, please, picture of week 3, kindly everyone, within your possibilities, if you can open your cameras, give us a nice smile. Ah, Mary, I saw you here. Why you didn't share Egyptian experience with the architecture? I cannot believe it, my friend. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I know you are super busy, probably attending several meetings at the same time that you joined the lecture. So we very much appreciate your effort and your commitment. And please, Ajush, let us know when we should have a nice smile.
Yes. So ladies, I need a big smile from everyone on the call in 3, 2, 1. All right, I've got the picture. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Happy rest of the week. Very much looking forward for your assignments. And Mary, next week you're going to share Egyptian experience, okay? I'm calling up to you directly. We're going to put you in the agenda.
Of course.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much to our speakers.